in the room are often the first that are literally leaving the company as a C-level executive. So question is marketing not important anymore in this VUCA world? Right? Is marketing not important? But if you ask Google, I mean, Google has an answer for everything, as you might know. If you type in marketing is, these are the answers you're getting. It's all around us. It's nothing. It's dead. It's everyone's job, right? So what is marketing? And that's what I would like to talk about today. Not giving you, I mean, you know what marketing is, you're marketeers, but how this is changing. And I really want to give you the holistic view, because what I see in my research is that many organizations assign a very narrow task to the CMO instead of giving it a holistic perspective. You know, I grew up as, when I did my PhD advisor was always saying, you know, marketing is running a company from a market-oriented perspective, but it's running a company. While I still see way too many organizations with very narrow tasks. Give me some social media, give me some brochures, I need some communication, right? And that's, for me, I think, the biggest problem. If you think about a traditional definition, marketing is a strategic, social, and managerial process by which individual groups obtain what they need and want. It's what through creating, offering, exchanging offerings of profitable value with others, right? So this is a very traditional definition. And I usually, in my classes, I ask executives, so what are the most important words here? And what do people usually say? Any ideas? Profitable value, right? That's usually what I hear. It's about profitable value. But again, what I would argue is the most important thing is really understanding what customers need and want. And in particular, in this VUCA world, this is even more important. It's even more difficult to understand it today. So Jaya, you said it earlier, right? The world is changing. And if I usually show pictures like this that you maybe have seen, because it went viral, the Urbi et Orbi event in Rome, where the Pope is speaking to hundreds of thousands of people. And this is what it looked like in 2005. This is what it looks like in 2013. I mean, reflect on this. What's the key difference? What do people say usually? Technology. Technology is the key difference here. But if I show you 2016, if I show you how I see 2016 without making any political statement here, but this is what it looks 2016. So now if you think about the differences between 2013 and 2016, the pre-elections of the Democrats, so what's the key difference? Technology? No, it's not technology. It's what you do with it. Customer behavior is changing, right? Everybody is just looking into his phone. Nobody cares about Hillary Clinton, except maybe this guy here in the middle. But other than this, nobody cares about it, right? So if you take these three pictures, how this is changing, I would argue you have to see technology as an enabler, and you have to understand how customers are changing, right? That's for me the most important thing. And here, I could spend a day on this. I could spend a week on these, how customers are changing. To give you the high-level summary of what we are seeing, of course, it's not predictable anymore. It's unpredictable. It's changing customer value. It's about building communities, Sanjaya, as you also said before, right? It's about writing after. It's about how do I let my community create user-generated content. It's about mutual interaction. It's about an omnichannel, seamless omnichannel approach, word of mouth, understanding data, not collecting data, really understanding data. And most important for marketeers, if you again think about the definition, it's dealing with short attention span of people. Today we are down at 3.5 seconds. That's your attention span. That's what I need to deal with every day in the classroom, right? The attention span of 3.5 seconds. The goldfish has an attention span of 10 seconds, just to give you a comparison, right? So this is how we see customer behavior changing. But then on the other hand, we have also digital mega trends disrupting your business, right? And again, I updated this, I'm updating this on an ongoing basis. I mean, all these trends you are familiar with. And again, we could talk about each bubble. We have almost a 5-day program at INSEAD. Right? We could talk about social media, we could talk about mobile, we could talk about blockchain. Right? Of course, we don't have the time today to do so. I mean, but some numbers, as you might know, in India, I mean, if I take India, social media usage on average, we're talking over 3 hours a day, almost 4 hours a day. Mobile internet, between 4 and 5 hours per day on average. Mobile internet, not internet, mobile internet, right? So here, simple questions like, as a marketeer, is your strategy mobile friendly? Are you focusing on communities, leveraging social media, earned media? Very important. And at the end, what I'm always saying here is the most important thing. I mean, in my book, you have maybe seen the subtitle. I'm saying how to drive uncommon growth by prioritizing customers over technology. So technology is important, but the more important question is, how do you use it to create customer value, right? And I would argue that's where I see many companies struggle. And there's an interesting study done by my colleagues at the Digital Lab at MIT. And I have literally replicated the study at INSEAD with some changes. And we see the same results, by the way. Because what the study is saying, if you think about marketing transformation, if you as a CMO, if you want to change your marketing activities, you have to think about technology intensity. So meaning really how much investments, time, money you spend on technology. But then you have to ask yourself, on the x-axis, how much time and investments do I put into managing this transformation? Do I have the right vision? Do I have the right mindset? Do I have the right strategy integration? Right? Of course, at one point you want to be a digital expert. But the numbers are showing, by the way, if you are a digital expert, it's a regression model underlying this data. The revenues are up 10%, profitability is up 26%, market valuation is up 12%. The interesting thing is, if you are a beginner, market valuation is minus 7%. But now I'm always asking the question, where are you better off, fashionista or conservative? Fashionista, I'm investing in technology and I deal with the management maybe later, or I'm going slower, carefully, I'm conservative, but I manage very well. And the interesting thing is, conservative have a market valuation of plus 7%, while fashionistas minus 12%. And this is, for me, it was an eye-opener, because everybody's saying you have to run fast, you have to run fast. And don't get me wrong, you should run fast. But I'm also saying it's better to walk in the right direction than running in the wrong direction. And most companies I see, incumbents, they run in the wrong direction. And we will talk about some examples. So don't get me wrong, ideally you're on the red arrow. We are back at rapid prototyping, experimentation. How can you be fast, but make sure all your activities, again, marketing is running a company from a market-oriented perspective. How can you integrate this properly into your strategy? Right? So that's, for me, very important. And here, I want to refer to the inside-out versus outside-in philosophy that my colleague and I always talk about. Because if I ask you, as I do in my classes, if I ask people, are you customer-centric? Every CMO says, every C-level executive says, usually, as you can imagine, 99%, of course I'm customer-centric. Of course I am. The problem is that many deal with customer centricity and follow an inside-out perspective. Meaning, what are my core competencies? What is my current business model? What could we offer under this business model? Right? Where could we offer it? And to whom do we finally sell? It's an inside-out perspective. You start from what am I strong at and what customers then finally get. While in today's VUCA world, where again, we see so many startups, it's so many disruption, you carefully have to constantly think about what do customers really want? What system do I currently have? But actually, what business model do I need to create? Right? So, and here I see the biggest gap. I wrote a case on BMW. You know, I asked a C-level executive at BMW, he would never say this in front of the camera. Are you innovative? And he said, we are absolutely not innovative. The most profitable car companies saying we are not innovative. Because this is exactly what he meant. We are very innovative when it comes to optimizing the combustion engine car. But we are not innovative when it comes to the future of mobility. You know what he said? My competition in the future is not Tesla. My competition is Zoom. My competition is Skype. What if people don't need mobility anymore? Right? So here you see a little bit, that's what I mean by marketing is running a company from a market-oriented perspective, but you need to be careful that you don't just be in your comfort zone. What I have always done as BMW, I've always created a combustion engine car. But again, you have to think about the future. And you already see the important point is it's not an either or here. It's not one versus the other. It's both. You need to monetize today, maybe a dying business model, but you have to think about the future, right? And that's, I mean, I don't need to show you this. I mean, this you all know. A classical marketing strategy framework. You can read in 100 books, right? But how is this changing based on our discussion? Is it still valid? Is it still valid? Right? Some people argue, forget about all these frameworks, forget about Porter, forget about David Arkoff, forget about Method, you name it. But I would argue the underlying building blocks, they do still apply. It's more agile, it's more fluid, but you still have to do your research, your strategy, your implementation. But the boxes, how you do it, that is heavily changing, heavily. Right? The 4 Ps, you could argue, I wasn't even a fan of it in the 90s when I learned it. I was already questioning that. Product? Is it really a product? But I mean, yeah, segmentation, targeting, positioning, completely changing, right? You have, with all the technology you have at hand, one-on-one segmentation, personalization, AI to personalize, product. It's not a product anymore. It's experience, it's solution, it's data, it's content. Some companies are just monetizing content. Some companies are just monetizing data. Don't have a product-centric perspective. Your product is not better than your competitors, the functional benefit of a product. I've rarely seen a company. You differentiate yourself by creating better experiences, by creating better solutions. I'm always saying you do not have to be best. You do not have to be best. You need to be best at being different. Best at being different for what customers care about. Right? And that's how I see this framework changing. Again, we don't have to go into all the details. It would explode the 45 minutes here. But yeah, we touched on this. But I wanted to give you a high-level overview of the more holistic, broader picture how I see it. I mean, remember I was giving you the little introduction of the 3 transformational shifts in marketing, which I see. To execute this new strategy, you should, as CMOs, as leaders responsible for the growth of your organization, about these 3 shifts. The first one for me is the digital selling shift. How do I sell more? The second one is the digital experience makeover, moving from products to experiences. How do I sell differently? And the last one is the digital proposition pivot. I pivot to a new business model. How do I sell new things, not just existing things differently? Right, and that's really my research from the last 3 years, what is also summarized in my new book. But again, the first shift, to spend 2 minutes on each of these. The first shift is really about how can I combine this classic inefficient sales and marketing model to a more integrated marketing, what I call it. I see way too many companies, in particular in B2B, marketing and sales completely separated. How you need to integrate this, and how can online and digital technologies and online marketing help you with selling more effectively? I came up with one framework at one point here, which I let people fill out. I compare it like celebrating an event, celebrating a party. If you celebrate a party, you invite people, you entertain, you listen, and you empower. Same you should do with engagement to sell more. Carefully think about, what's my goal? What's my objective? Loyalty versus awareness. So what's the occasion of the party? Who do you invite? Where are you having the party? What's the channel you're using? What's the segment you're targeting? How do you entertain? What's the theme? What's activities? Does the brand fit to your personality? Same with your online or offline engagement. What's your point of differentiation? What's your brand positioning? Listen and engage. If you organize a party, you listen carefully. You participate in the conversation. You think about, how do I deal with the drunks? Same with in today's engagement. How do I deal with people spreading bad news about my company? Right? So same if you think about engagement for your business. And then the most important thing, you empower people. Your guests are the most important people, right? You are the busy man or woman when you organize an event. So how can you make your guests interact? And that's same in engagement. To my point earlier, you need to carefully manage your community. It's a mutual conversation, right? So that's really, I get lots of feedback from students leveraging this framework, and great examples. I highly recommend fill it out for yourself, fill it out for your companies. There are multiple frameworks, by the way, for your different segments, right? Multiple parties you celebrate. I mean, the second shift here, the digital experience makeover. So this is all about leveraging now digital technologies to create better experiences by making them more tailored, configurable, dynamic, and easy to use. Right, so here again, I mean, you know the importance of customer journey mapping. I don't have to tell you this, right? Carefully mapping your customer journey, understanding the pain points that you need to fix, right? And that's to give you an example here, which I worked on quite some time ago, but I still use it as an example in hospitality. Customer journey mapping, we identified 300 touch points. If you run a hotel, there are 300 touch points, right? In the casino, for example, this is a Las Vegas example. I spend way too much time of my life in the city, but you have many touch points in each of these. So there's an outer ring, if you will, right? In the pool area, 25 touch points, right? Departure, 10 touch points. So many touch points. And I ask people, so again, customer journey mapping is about getting rid of the pain points. What was one key pain point? Check-in. Check-in was a key pain point in Las Vegas on a Friday afternoon. So how do you optimize check-in? And an associate stand up in my team and said, no check-in, no check-in. And I said, what do you mean no check-in? People need to check in. But then we almost killed the idea. But when we elaborated on this, that was 2013. He's right, right? Getting rid of the pain point. And at that time, this hotel introduced the mobile check-in key. But they didn't stop there. Remember, you can fix pain points. That's the first thing you should do. Many companies try to enlighten customers from the beginning, but the first thing you should do is fixing pain points. And then you think about, once you fix it, how you can move on. And what they developed is the mobile key, but they didn't stop there. For example, Sanjaya, you are landing in Las Vegas, you opted in, your mobile application is pushing the location, right? And then you're getting a message. Sanjaya, welcome back. We can see you are approaching the hotel. Here is your room key. We upgraded you. You have a nice view to the Bellagio fountain. And if you want to see the view, click here on this link. If you don't like this room, these are the other 5 rooms in your price category. And feel free to change. Right? So you see here a fantastic application where they use lots of digital trends, lots of digital technology, again, driven by marketeers, right? Not just give me some social media, running a company from a market-oriented perspective, understanding what customers really need and optimizing the experience. Which brings me to the last one. So now we're moving away from optimizing your existing products and solutions to pivoting your business model. And many of you, I'm pretty sure you heard about the business model canvas. I don't have to go into this, but from Osterwalder, long story short, business strategy is about where do I want to go, and the business model canvas is how do I get there. In our research, we saw that many organizations are still running their business on a legacy business model. And over the time, over years, if you don't change it, you will be dying as an organization. We have seen this, right? And now if you think about changing the business model, I mean, there are lots of great examples, right? Tech companies moving to different business models, whether it's cloud solutions, you name it. Engie, the biggest French energy company, moving to, I give you the energy for free. Why do you need to pay for energy? Energy is free in the future. Isn't that great? What you pay for is, I help you to save energy. I'm an energy company, but you know what? I want to sell less energy. That's what they are working on. And you pay me a performance contract. Completely new business model. Same with Michelin. In B2B, they give away the tire for free. What you pay for is the usage, the kilometer. For every kilometer you drive, you pay a price. But I give you the tire for free, right? Because the Asian competitors were like really pushing the price and down. And the Michelin tire is actually a cheaper tire if you think about the cost per kilometer. And that's why they changed to this business model. Right? Not for every customer, for some. Again, business models are next to each other. But many organizations, again, are still working on their own business, on their old business model, legacy business model. They don't want to change. Remember, the inside out, outside in, because it's new. So let me here in the last 10 minutes, so that we have 10 minutes for Q&A, focus again really on this holistic perspective for marketeers. Again, remember I said earlier, CMO tenure is going down because what we see is the tasks are too narrow. But if I want to make my strategy work, what other key enablers do I need? Right? And again, what we saw and what colleagues saw at Harvard, right? The most important variable to deliver outstanding customer experiences, outstanding marketing strategies, if you will, is a customer-centric culture. Right? Look at the numbers here, the importance from C-level executives, and look at the effectiveness, right? Or management buy-in, right? The same. So you as a CMO, I mean, you need to, like seed the ground, if you will, right? Very important. But why do many organizations struggle in this world? Why do incumbents in particular struggle? I'm always saying it's way more difficult to move a house in this VUCA world than to build a house. And I'm pretty sure many of you, if you're not a startup, you're moving a house. You have legacy systems, you have inertia. You have people that don't believe in all the great, cool things you're trying to implement in the organization, right? And here, I want to really reference the framework from my colleague Nathan Furr, red and blue management. It's not red and blue ocean, right? So INSEAD is known for red and blue ocean, but this is not this, it's red and blue management. What's red management? It works very well in low uncertainty, traditional management. What's blue management? Entrepreneurial management. And if you look at it, red is all about optimization, maximization, execution, right? It's a little bit this inside out we discussed earlier. I'm selling more combustion engine cars. Henry Ford, you can have any color as long as it's black, because if it's black, it dries the fastest, I can produce 20 more cars. It's great, you monetize, but it's not good for the future of your organization. In many, again, back to our research, in many organizations, we see this business model helps you today, but doesn't help you for the future. So you have to bring in blue. You have to learn to minimize, to innovate. And finding the right balance between the two is just critical. And I'm not saying, again, it's either or. And I cannot give you the proportion. You have to find out, again, what is the situation I'm dealing with as an organization. But remember when the BMW executive said, my competitor going forward is Zoom, right? That's my competitor. So should BMW now go into digital conference technology? Question mark. Sure, why not, right? Could be a way. But at the end, yeah, you have the marathon runner and the sprinter. And what I'm also saying is you cannot be both in one person. I never saw a marathon runner and a sprinter at the same time. And you don't have to be, but you have to run your organization, your team, in a way that you allow for both. And again, the waves of disruption, and this is from a case I wrote on Kuoni, the leading Swiss travel agency. And you might remember advertising and travel, these were industries disrupted quite early. Then we went into electronics, media, right? Barnes & Noble, Blockbuster, Radio Shack, then fashion, sports, toys, Toys R Us, Sports Society. I mean, there can be lots of more brands. Now we're moving into banking, insurance, education. We are heavily disrupted, right? With all the free online education. So, but all these have in common, they have a legacy, an inertia, often the wrong culture, all these companies, and the wrong business model. And they treat digital, as I call it here, the digital lipstick on a legacy pig, right? So you cannot fly a train, you cannot. So how can you really think about your underlying business model? And how do you need to change it? And here, just to give you the 1-minute summary of the Kuoni case before we dive into your questions. I mean, like Eleanor Roosevelt said, learn from the mistakes of others. You can't live long enough to do them all yourself. But look at what Kuoni did. They did customer experience design. They did digital marketing. They did content automation. They did do open innovation workshops. They did all this. But they are still not with us anymore. 15 years later, still bankrupt. So what went wrong? Right? So they only did it half-baked and not really believing in it. And again, they did do this on the wrong business model. They didn't change the business model. Right? And I would argue marketing, if you really understand as a CMO marketing as understanding value, co-creating value, delivering value, communicating value, and monetizing value, you have to think about this. Right? And what's the moral of the story at the end? They failed on many things here, as you can see. Their digital marketing strategy, their customer focus, there was no customer focus, real customer focus, what customers wanted in today's world, right? Remember our discussion earlier? And I asked the CMO, who is the co-author of the case, Jan Sedlasek, so what went wrong, right? And this is exactly what he said. In this VUCA world, we should have rebuilt the whole ship, the whole organization, while running it at full speed and keeping all customers on board. But again, the culture will treat the new model as wrong. And the culture at Kuoni did, right? Remember, inside out versus outside in. And they tried to inject it, right? And they tried to transform the organization, but culture was fighting back like an autoimmune disease, right? So at the end, that's why they failed. And that's why we still see companies with great marketing strategies failing. Because at one point, somebody remembers the tenure of the CMO. Somebody is not really believing in it, right? So what's the learning? What's the learning for me from this case? If you, the captain of the ship, if you, the captain of this Titanic, and you see the iceberg, what's the first thing you do? You're changing the direction. But what's the problem if you have a big ship? If you have a big ship in this VUCA world, changing the direction takes time. Again, I call this legacy and inertia. So what do you do next? If you see I changed the direction, but I'm still hitting the iceberg, what should you do next? Develop speedboats, many of them. And where do speedboat works best? In the water. You need to put them in the water. What do I mean by this? Building lots of speedboats. Often what we see in our research, if you try to be innovative, if you think about the new outside in, new business models, new strategies, you have to detach it from the boat. You have to detach it from your legacy systems, from your culture. You have to build them. Steep, again, fast experimentation, rapid prototyping. Many boats will actually sink, right? But some will grow and some will teach and some new tricks to the old ship. Some will help the direction. And we have seen companies doing this very well. So here again, customer centricity, which we, I think, all agree is mostly owned by the marketing department, although my perspective is it should be owned by anybody in the organization. They are responsible for innovation and building these new ships. But also keep in mind, people that have worked on a cruise ship, steering the wheel, running the machines, serving the guests, wiping the floors, are not necessarily the people building speedboats. So think about this carefully when you think about the future of your organization. So literally, second last slide here. So that's also how I ended my book with this last chapter. I mean, of course, as a marketeer, what you also most likely, most of you do, and I hope I helped you to give you the holistic perspective with the 3 transformational shifts. You need a purpose, you need the strategy, you need a powerful brand, which you build online and offline, communities, etc., all the good things. But again, Drucker, culture eats strategy for breakfast, as you all know. Your marketing strategy will fail if you do not put, we call it the soul, body, mind framework in place as well. Having the right values, having the right rituals, having the right stories. Body, having the right IT. Of course, you need the right IT, the right processes, the right tools, the right governance. You need this. And then most important, having the right mindset. Blue management versus red management. And again, it's very interesting to see at INSEAD, almost 80% of all MBAs come to INSEAD. They want to be the entrepreneur. They want to build their own company. Some make it. Many move back to BCG, McKinsey, you name it. And you can see the difference, right? Who is successful, who is not. You need a good idea. You need a good product. You need a good solution. But you have to put also the right mindset in place. Yeah, and that is really my last slide here. Yeah, so we have on the one end strategy. We talked about how marketing strategy is changing. We talked about the 3 transformational shifts, and we talked about the enablers you need to put in place. Let me pause here, and I think I managed on time, as promised, to keep 10 minutes for Q&A. If you have any questions, yeah, please shoot it my way.
I think we have the first question right there.
Which industry, thanks Praveen, industry is moving faster in shifting to customer-centric marketing? You know, this is a very interesting question. I mean, I wouldn't say there is a specific industry, because it's really goes back to segmentation, targeting, positioning. Who are you after, right? So again, I can show you here. I have an MBA who created in the beverage industry, who created a product which is a water drop, right? So it's a drop. You throw it in your water and flavor the water. Usually, again, you would argue the beverage industry is a very boring industry. They're shipping bottled water across the planet, right? But he is, I mean, 3 years in, the company valuation is 300 million. We're talking about 1 million happy customers with no marketing budget. Can you imagine in 3 years? So it's really hard to say, Praveen, and I would not say there is an industry doing better. It's people, it's companies, it's people, CMOs, C-level executives that really understood the outside-in perspective on customer centricity and not the inside-out perspective. I'm in my comfort zone. I'm always doing what I have done, right? So that's why I couldn't pick at a specific industry. But the tech industry was the usual suspects. I work a lot with Google. I work with IBM. I work with SAP. You could argue some of them, they are more customer-centric than others. Thanks for the feedback here in the chat. Yeah, next, there's another question. Customer behavior is changing over the last decade. As a customer need to change at a fundamental level? Yes, what I would argue, the fundamental change is the attention span, right? So you could argue customers have always changed, but we are constantly now multitasking on various devices. 3 seconds attention span, while it was like the goldfish, that's why I was showing you the goldfish, it was like 10 seconds. I think that's really one of the main challenges that many organizations face, how to deal with this underlying problem when it comes to attention. I mean, this could affect anything. How do you talk to your customers? How do you talk to your people? But also, how quickly is your website loading on a mobile phone? People are getting frustrated if the website is not working. Remember, Jeff Bezos was asked, what's the success? Why is Amazon so successful? And what was his answer? There are 3 things: convenience, convenience, and convenience. That's why we are successful. And that's, for me, I think, the biggest problem to deal with. Yeah. Hopefully that answered that question. Then, Ayesh, what disruptions are we witnessing in content creation? Specifically, that the advertising industry was disrupted way back. Yeah, so of course, I mean, here automated content is the buzzword. I mean, content is still important, but I would argue, I mean, as you also said, and as you saw on the slide, I mean, media content, I would not send my kids to an agency, right? So don't send your kids, if you have kids, to an agency or to law. Law is the other business that might disappear. But the point here is digital disrupted the monopole of media agencies, because now everybody can be the media agent. And I think back to the digital selling framework, remember the party framework, I think I get lots of feedback in particular on this framework from students that have seen it 5 years And they finally used it in the COVID crisis because now they move online, right? Finally, they say, oh, I'm finally doing what you told me 5 years ago, right? Thanks to COVID. I mean, we don't want to thank COVID. It's a horrible thing, but you get the point. And that's how I would see content creation as you as an organization. How can you do it? But even more important, as this guy is doing as well with the water drop, how can you leverage your community to do that? I think many companies should learn from this, right? And many companies still rely, even in online engagement, they treat it like a push channel instead of a really engaging mutual interaction. When I asked Martin Wieser, the founder, he said, that is maybe the reason why we are having a valuation of 300 million today, because we take care with content, with answers, with deep customer engagement, with every comment, not just question, every comment we get. Abhinav, yeah, good to see you, Abhinav. Great to have you, former student. Quick question, the marketing and communication function itself is being disrupted through automation, AI, chatbots. Absolutely. Here, it's a fantastic question, Abhinav. It goes back to my last framework. You need to bring in the right skills, right? Of course, as you know, I know you read the book, I try to be technology agnostic because technology comes and goes. Right, so and that's why we have lots of HR people coming to INSEAD, and they ask me, so what's the technology of the future? I mean, if I could predict it, I wouldn't be here. But the point is, you constantly, and it's a very good point, Abhinav, you constantly have to have that open mindset and reflect on what's going on, how is my market changing, how is the context changing, and how do I bring in skills needed. I read an interesting study saying by 2030, 60% of all the employees worldwide are contractors. Can you imagine? Tomorrow I'm working 6 months here, then I'm working 6 months there. You see, again, I was saying education is disrupted. Master of Business Administration. I mean, the title in itself, you could argue, does not any make sense. Administration. People want to learn what I need today, not what I want to use in 10 years, right? So it's a very good point. It's a very important thing, these skills. And of course, today I would say, Abhinav, it's a lot about all the machine learning and AI functions. But again, you need to have somebody who understands also the business. I've seen lots of great coders, but they don't know how to use all this to come up with better business decisions, right? So that's important as well. Maybe one more question here would, and then you stop me, Fakir, when I'm running out of time here. VUCA world, nothing is normal. The organizations have no patience. How does the CMO still show them the importance of the long-term view? Oh yeah, I mean, Atul, we can have an offline discussion. I had a class literally this week on Monday with 30 CFOs, chief financial officers. This is a discussion around shareholder value discussion. I know your shareholders will drive you in short term. I want to maximize today. I don't care about the future, right? I sell my shares. I mean, you see, this is a very broad discussion. And this is why the CMO is unfortunately often the first guy fired, right? This is for me a general problem of the shareholder value concept. And we have to think about, in particular in this world, how can we build long-term value? And some companies, with the CFOs, some really get it. Kuoni, and I show them this slide here, right? And I show them, can you put yourself on this slide? And many companies say, yeah, absolutely. I mean, we are a legacy business model. We don't change. And once you realize you need to change, it's most likely too late. So yeah, maybe last one, I see one more here. How have customers' buying journeys influenced the shift to consumer centricity? I mean, here, again, for me, this is a consulting buzzword, customer journey mapping. It's a consulting buzzword, but research is showing, I've done research with IBM where we interviewed 12,000 C-level executives. And again, short answer, you can only be customer-centric if you know the entire journey. And by entire journey, I mean the 200 touch points. Not there's a pre-sales, sales, after sales. There could be 200 touch points, and you need to identify the pain points. I think the hospitality example, that's why I'm still using it, is really a good example of they focused on one pain point, but it changed the perception of the entire hotel. So yeah, I used 44 minutes, so great. I think I'm in time. Great questions here. Thanks for the engagement here in the chat. So feel free to reach out, feel free again to connect on LinkedIn. Yeah, you can use the barcode here. If you want to connect, if you want to follow my research, also feel free to join the website b2bdigitaltransformation.com. Thank you very much for having me. It's a real pleasure.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Joerg. That was quite an insightful session. And I think a lot of new, interesting ideas have come up. People are going to be following the tips shared by you, and we will definitely emerge victorious by the end. Thank you once again. It was lovely having you here with us. Thank you.